A moment in history. A point of no return. A choice between freedom and submission. Between a new nation and an old empire. There was once a day that seemed ordinary, yet carried extraordinary meaning. Philadelphia stood along the banks of the Delaware River, one of the busiest ports in colonial America. Its straight streets and brick houses stretched inland from the crowded waterfront, forming a city unlike any other in the colonies. By the 1770s, it had become the largest and most influential city in British North America. At the heart of the city stood the Pennsylvania State House, a quiet brick building, unremarkable to most who passed its doors. Yet within those walls, a decision was being shaped that would change the course of history. Philadelphia was home to Elfreth's Alley, the oldest residential street in America, set among rows of quiet Georgian houses that lined the city's narrow streets. Its streets were laid out in a precise grid, stretching straight across the growing city. Most were paved with rough cobblestones, worn smooth by carts, horses, and daily life. Georgian architecture appeared throughout the city, with one lasting symbol still standing today: the Christ Church, at the corner of 2nd and Market Street, in the heart of colonial Philadelphia. Yet some churches were even older. Gloria Dei, the old Swedes church, had stood near the Delaware River since 1700, a remnant of the earlier Swedish settlement. By the 1770s, Philadelphia had grown into the largest city in British North America, with nearly 40,000 residents. Merchants, craftsmen, laborers, immigrants, and enslaved people all lived side by side in the crowded colonial city.
For the fish, if
People
you
of
please.
many faiths lived here as well: Quakers,
Are these the
Anglicans,
Newtown pipits?
Lutherans,
Aye, neighbour.
Presbyterians,
A penny for
Catholics,
£3.
and
They keep
Jews,
well through the
making
winter.
Philadelphia one of the most religiously
coming
diverse
through.
cities in the
7
colonies.
pence for the bread and carrots, mistress.
During this time, Philadelphia stood on the edge between freedom and continued rule, and soldiers were still a common sight in its streets. Yet for most residents, daily life carried on much as usual. Still, politics had begun to slip into everyday conversation, spoken quietly in homes, shops, and taverns across the city.
Repeatedly, we must declare our grievances to the world.
We must secure the shipment before the collectors arrive.
The docks at midnight, then.
And keep your voices
Philadelphia's streets were often described as a city of horses, with an estimated 6,000 to 7,000 horses moving through its roads each day. Printing was one of Philadelphia's most active industries, with more than a dozen printing houses operating in the city and producing thousands of newspapers and pamphlets each week for readers across 13 colonies. Life in the city followed a steady rhythm, filled with familiar trades, merchants selling goods, craftsmen working in their shops, sailors moving through the docks, and printers setting type late into the night. In the 1770s, Philadelphia's Delaware waterfront was one of the busiest ports in North America. Ships, dockworkers and merchants crowded the wharves as cargo moved constantly between vessels and warehouses. Warehouses along the river stored barrels and crates ready for export. Merchant ships crowded the wooden wharves while smaller boats carried cargo to shore. Sailors and dockworkers kept the harbor in constant motion. Taverns were common gathering places in colonial Philadelphia. Sailors, merchants, and townspeople met here to drink, eat, and exchange news. Conversations about trade, politics, and events in the colonies often filled the rooms late into the night. As dawn approached, the city slowly grew quiet.
The shipment arrived.
The busy
earlier
streets
than
and taverns began to empty.
Symbols, but we
Yet beneath the calm morning light, a sense of unease could be felt across the city.
This is an affront to the rights of the colonies. I will not sign this betrayal of the public trust.
At night, the Delaware waterfront falls into an unusual silence. The busy wharves stand nearly empty, with few people left along the river. In the darkness, sailors and merchants quietly sense that something is changing. A growing unease spreading through the harbor as tensions rise across the colonies.
The tide is turning. We should secure the rest.
Yeah.
Taverns remained lively late into the evening, filled with the sound of conversation and clinking tankards. Sailors, merchants, and townsmen gather to share stories and speak about what the future may bring. Some voices carry worry, while others speak with quiet confidence about the days ahead.
The news from the assembly is troubling.
Indeed. We must hope for peaceful resolution.
As the night grows deeper, the streets become darker. Most candles and oil lanterns have already been extinguished. The roads grow quiet and nearly empty. The city settles into a brief moment of stillness. Windows go dark one by one as the night deepens. For a few quiet hours, Philadelphia rests. By morning, the streets will fill again, and the rhythm of daily life will begin once more. Soon, the sound of horse hooves and wooden wheels rolling over cobblestones breaks the silence. The noise echoes through the narrow streets and begins to wake the city. One by one, people rise as another day in Philadelphia begins. The port soon fills with the shouts of sailors unloading cargo. The streets come alive again with the sound of conversations and rumors spreading through the city. News of a new era for this continent slowly reaches the people. They speak with confidence about the future, though few could imagine how powerful this nation would one day become.